Hi, this is Petra and Missy coming from the big picture. This is our fifth podcast, and we want to thank you for taking the time to tune in and listen to us. Last week, somebody had asked me to talk about guilt, and guilt is a vibration. So emotions are, um, they're just energy that's a vibration. And we label feelings so that we know what they are. Like, you start going to school and you're taught, this is an eraser, this is a pen, this is good, this is bad, this is short, this is tall, this is sad, this is happy. So we have this like comparison thing going on. And our minds tell us one is good and one is bad. Like there's pretty and then there's ugly. But as we grow, it's uncomfortable. Like doing this work is not always easy because, first of all, you need to get quiet and sit with yourself and look within and be curious enough to see areas of your life that just aren't working for you and where you want to grow. Some people say change, but I like to just say grow. I don't think anybody really needs to change. Um, just about waking up and having more awareness and living differently in the moment and creating a new life for yourself. But as we grow and we choose that, things shift in our relationships, relationship with ourselves and with other people. Now, the people that are willing to really do this work and, take the time, invest their money, and, uh, you know, be uncomfortable, they are usually the ones that are the caregivers. They're usually the ones that, they're the 100-watt light bulb, and the other person, maybe the people in their families are 75 and 50-watt light bulbs that I talk about. So they're usually the ones that are always kind of dipping down their vibration because they are more conscious and they see more. So they're already like doing this yo-yo their whole life. We're very in tune with other people. We're good at reading people. Sometimes it's to the point that we almost play God because we overmeet people's needs, and that doesn't do anybody good. It doesn't do us good or anybody else. It just deprives people the opportunity to feel things themselves and to grow, and it creates codependence, and that's just life. But guilt is there's shame in guilt, and the guilt vibration can be very debilitating. And in my opinion, there's a lot of judgment in it because there's like this necessity to be right. So if somebody's trying to guilt you because you are exploring new ways of living, new practices, whatever it might be, to live your truth and to be healthy and to be happy, because they're looking at you and they can see you changing and shifting, and it's usually fear based that they're throwing this guilt at you because they're afraid of losing you, and they're also afraid to look within themselves to grow themselves. So Missy and I were talking the last time, and I think the second podcast too, about how, there's in relationships, there's the other person, and then there's this third person, which is the two of you together that forms this relationship. And that with Missy and I, we don't have that because there's her, there's me, and then the third person is God. So there's no um, dependency. We just are there to hold a space for each other and to enjoy each other's company. So, but within human beings, most of the time there's that third person. And in working with people, like in the classes, one person in particular, she said, I'm doing all this hard work and she's living a better life and she's proud of herself and she's feeling really good. And yet her family is making her feel guilty because she's staying in her own flow. She's saying, I don't want to do this year for Christmas. I'm going to do this. So it's those traditions and breaking things. And and she was frustrated. And it's that kind of a thing where I say when you are more conscious, you really are more accountable. It's like being that bigger person we're taught when we're young. And it kind of stinks because already your whole life you've really been living your life, not your life really just for yourself. You've been living your life for other people too, like the giver and the taker thing. Mm-hmm. So now here you are already in this vulnerability pocket, and you're doing the work, and you really just want people to be happy for you. You just want them to be able to be happy for you, or at the very least, just leave me alone. You don't even need to say I'm doing great or this or that, but please don't kind of constantly pull me back and pull me back. It's a horrible feeling.
But wouldn't you agree that people that put the guilt on you, it's because they're uncomfortable with what's going on right now?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of it, especially now, I think, with politically what's going on and what's also going on with coronavirus. There's a lot of fear. Mm-hmm. It's especially hard time. But this happens all the time, even without that outside mm-hmm. stuff going on. But I think right now, especially, people are very, very afraid. And they're reaching for anything outside of themselves. Even if it's misery. Just everybody being miserable together. I mean, it's comforting in some way to people.
But even when you said the example of people going, not getting together with people in the holidays, even if it wasn't Corona, like even if it was just, isn't it because people are like, well, no, that's what we used to do all the time. Like they don't want to feel that uncomfortableness.
Because when you have repetition, it's the only form of permanence human beings really have. Because we don't have control of anything. Mm-hmm. But if you have your routine, you can depend on that. That's pretty predictable, and mm-hmm. that it makes people feel like they have control.
Right.
But it's not really control, right? That's why we develop these patterns. But these family members were making her feel guilty. Okay, so again, guilt is just a vibration, and I tried to explain to her that we can get angry about it. And if you get angry, first of all, if we're really spiritual, we're not going to judge it. We're going to be very sage-like, and we're not going to judge it. It's not going to upset us at all. We're just going to see it go floating by. But we're reactive, okay? And at this point in her growth, she's also protective of what she's worked so hard for. And I don't blame her.
And there's a respect.
Yes, and that's absolutely, mm-hmm. because we're taught God wants us to respect ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I totally know where she's coming from, because I get this, raging up in me sometimes mm-hmm. too. So, the real thing is to, if we can remember to stop, and if somebody's throwing something at us, like, you always come here every year, and now you're not coming, and you're going to somebody else's house. Oh, let me show you a picture that I took of the little food I made and send it to you. Trying to make you feel mm-hmm. better. You can stop and feel it. Make space for it. Invite it in, and just feel that energy. Just sit with it. Because when you sit with it, it loosens up. When you react to it, it's like it comes in and it chokes you. Mm-hmm. So just sit with it. And in order to sit with it, you have to be in, which means your heart and mind are a team, right? So it's about closing your eyes and going down into where your actual physical heart is. Shaking your head up and down, like, yes, up and down. This is really happening. This is really happening. My sister's trying to make me feel guilty. And you feel that energy of guilt. And you ask yourself, is it mine? And you know it's not. But 9 times out of 10, they're not coming at you because they're trying to be mean to you. They're coming from fear. Mm-hmm. And you've played a major part in their life. And they're afraid of losing you. There's dependency. And everybody really wants to be needed. Human beings do. And as we grow, people feel like they're not as needed. We held ourselves back. At least I know I did. Mm-hmm. I played small. Mm-hmm. I played small because I was over meeting other people's needs. And it wasn't because I was a saint. A lot of times I distracted myself with concentrating on other people so I wouldn't be seen. And that kind of was like playing God. Like I said, I've never been afraid of failure, but scared to death of success. So I said to her, if you can not be attached to it, because you know it's not yours, and really see where it's coming from. And if you're in your heart center and in your centered self, when you drop down into your centered self, because there's a human self, and I told her, take your human self and remember, the human self is going to be the human self. Mm-hmm. So if you're fighting this within yourself, you're not accepting the fact that you're human. And there's a big gift in this, okay? Because we hold ourselves too accountable for being human beings.
Too many expectations.
Too many expectations, okay? So, an otter is an otter. An otter acts like an otter, right? An otter's in the water doing otter stuff. Mm-hmm. It looks up at a bird and it doesn't go, oh, maybe I'm going to try to fly. He's better than me because he can fly and I can only swim. An otter's just an otter. Well, human beings are human beings. And we hurt each other. And we're we're social creatures and we're meant to be with other people, but, there's survival of the fittest. There's a lot of greed. There's, we really are looking out for ourselves. We're an animal. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it like that and say that's the human self and it's a human condition, but then say, I am working on becoming more my God self. That's why I'm doing the work. And then realize you have this separate, centered self. And it really is a separate part of you. To me, it's the authentic part of me. It's the God part of me.
And I feel like, I'm trying to think in my mind what I would say if I were her to my relatives, what I would say. But I feel like the less is more.
Yes.
Because then you get into the story and you kind of make that energy kind of sometimes pull you back in.
It baits you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then what happens is you get into the story, you have the higher vibration, and then what you do is you empower the energy. You empower the energy and you give your power away.
And that's happened. That's happened to me.
Oh, yeah.
It's happened to us.
Yeah.
And it's like you start to talk and you're like, oh, but I'm not trying to make you feel bad or I'm not. Mm-hmm. And then it just,
Because you left yourself.
Yeah. And then you have that fear in you.
Absolutely. You take it on. So it's about, like I said, stopping and feeling it, not leaving yourself, going down in, realizing you're human. Oh, I'm not going to beat myself up because I just felt that anger. I want to just smush her face. I want to choke my cousin to death or whatever. Yeah. But it's like, okay, you know what? I felt that. And it just is what it was. It was guilt. And it didn't feel good. Ouch. And then stay with yourself and feel it. Realize that she's human and you're human too. Go down into your heart center, close those eyes, shake your head up and down. Yes, it's really happening. And find that centered self and allow the space. Invite it in and allow yourself to just relax in your body and just soften around it. And look at her energy. She's depending on you. Mm-hmm. However, in your actions, you're being a healer because you're showing her she can depend on herself because you're doing the work. You're showing her, this is how you choose yourself and stay in your flow. It does not make you a bad person. And when you actually break these patterns where you feel like you have to do something for someone, the relationship actually becomes more authentic and more enjoyable.
It does. But I know I have been so used to that in my life since I was younger that it's hard to break those patterns. But once you do, it's like you are actually allowing that other person to grow, like you said in the beginning, and really look at their fear and look at their emotions and really feel it. And it gives them a chance to come forward and you could have such a more authentic relationship with them, or they could not want that anymore, you know.
Mhm.
So it really it shows you also, and it could be family, it could be friends, it could be anybody, but it really shows a lot to you, and then that's just more acceptance for you, and it almost brings it to like a higher. I'm not saying a hierarchy, but it almost brings you to more of an awareness. And as you do this with other people, it becomes easier for you.
Mm-hmm. Comes more normal, yeah.
Yeah. And that's how you live your life. You just you really you feel it, you sit with it for a minute. Anybody could ask you a question. Anybody, could you do this for me today? Just pause for a minute and feel it. And if it's in your flow, go for it. If it's not in your flow, use what you know and do, you know, say I'm sorry I can't do that. you know but as you continue to do this, it becomes your life, and that's what you're choosing yourself.
You're choosing truth.
Yeah.
You're choosing yourself. You're choosing God. You're choosing truth.
So when you first hear that, I remember when I was first in a lot of this with you, doing this work, doing it, and it's like, oh, I don't think I can do that. No, you can do that.
Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable the
Yeah.
first time or two, yeah.
But you can do it. Once you do it, it's like, oh, that really felt good.
Mm-hmm. And when you're doing it, you're coming from your centered self.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not putting out any energy when you're in your centered self of like feeling dominant in a
No.
situation or feeling as though you are forceful or better than somebody
Or
else,
arrogant, or
arrogant,
any of
that
that.
stuff.
Any of
No,
that. No.
because it's actually very
Peaceful.
gentle
Yes.
and peaceful. It really is.
And it actually comes out very with a lot of love.
Yeah, it does because you're respecting yourself.
Yeah.
And we teach people how to treat us.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing is you're saying, I'm showing you how to treat me. So when you kindly say to this person, because then the other, we're in each other's lives, and like I said, there's that 100-watt light bulb, and then there's the 75. The people that are easy to love in our life are easy to love, right? And the people that some people in our lives we love are just really not that easy to love, but we still love them. And we are kind of guiding them and teaching them, but it doesn't always feel good. It doesn't. It sometimes it feels like
Frustration.
frustration, or just kind of like in my lifetime. I know I've always felt like
Defeated.
yeah, like I've always had to do the work. Like, why am I always doing the work? Why do I have to fight to have my own life? Why do I have to? But I created that. I created that. I said yes all those times to I said no to myself and yes to other people. So I said to this woman, I said, if you are not attached to it and putting energy that it's bad or she's doing it on purpose, if you can just see the fact that she's scared, because she really is scared, but then have your voice and look at her and say, I can see this upsets you, because she did seem upset. So don't take that guilt energy on and get mad at it and then lose yourself. Okay, because now you don't have you and she doesn't have herself either. It's just the energy's there. Just really look at her honestly and say, I really see how upset you are. And then let her have her voice. And if she says, well, yeah, because we always do this every year and blah, 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 again, you can look at her and say, I understand that. But this year, I decided to do this. But, we can go for tea tomorrow. We can go and, I'll come over and have a cup of coffee. We'll do that puzzle together. But it's not all or nothing. And I said to her, you didn't leave yourself. Good for you. It was uncomfortable, but next time it'll be easier.
Right.
But guilt is a really big stumbling block. People stop growing because of it. People stay in abusive relationships because of it. It's debilitating.
And the shame, you say there's shame in it, because it's like you I've been in places in my life where I have stayed, and it's almost like you then fear comes into you, and it's like, what are people going to think? What is everybody going to think if I do this? So the shame is there, and then you realize too, also, like, staying in it, there's shame. It's like a double-edged sword. It's, so it's there's a lot of shame.
I also told this woman, you've been doing classes now for a year. And some people tell people in their lives that they're doing this type of work, that they're doing it intuitive energy healing. But some people are very private about it, and that's okay. However, this woman has shared it with her family. And I said to her, are you using the language? Like you and I right now, every week we speak this language. And when this woman is with me, in the classes, she's speaking the language. The student becomes a teacher and the teacher becomes a student. So I said to her, are you speaking the language with your family? And she stopped and she said, no. And I said, why not? And I said, I tell you all the time, you're a healer. We're all healers. So you're trying to do the work from explaining it and trying to make them understand and give you a break and leave you alone and let you do your own thing. You can't explain this work to somebody. You live it. It's an actual space that you enter, and you live it. You are the work. And she understood. And I said to her, start speaking the language. Don't be Susie speaking to her sister. Drop into that centered self, that when you're with me and we speak the language, start speaking the language. You don't have to be your sister with your sister. When a situation gets a little difficult or whatever, and you feel that energy that always made you say yes to her and no to you, whoa, wait a minute, I'm feeling this. And you're feeling it because you're a healer. So stop. Take that human self, like I said, put her over on the couch and go in to ask to be a channel of love and light for your sister and for yourself and for the situation. Take yourself out of it and hold a space of love, because you're going to be love. You're your centered self. And allow yourself to speak the language. And she does speak the language. She has seen, and several times she's called me up and said, this is really cool. I was led to do this. I was led to, buy this, such a thing for somebody. And then they told me it was a great message because they're, one of their loved ones used to buy it for them all the time or whatever. So she knows that. But, they forget. People forget how good they are. And I'm telling her, you're really good at this. And when you do that, it's amazing. You feel so good. You feel so, it's almost high in it. Because you don't want to hurt that other person.
No.
And you don't always want to be in the place where you feel like you have to choose. You have to choose her. You have to choose yourself. I have to choose them, or I don't, choose myself. No, you can just choose God. If you choose God, there's God in you, there's God in her, right? You can come from kindness.
And I think when you start using the language, it's interesting because, I've used the language around people who know that I do, that I practice this intuitive energy healing. And just last night, there was a situation, and I said, well, he used his voice. And the person said, well, what do you mean by that? Like, he spoke up for himself? I said, yeah, he used his voice. So it's like, if they become interested in it, and trying to help people, I said, just go down to your heart center, and people are like, well, what does that mean? And then there's an interest, and then there's a conversation, and then there's more. And if they truly want to be around you and be in your space, they'll start questioning. And it's like, you can use that healer. You can use those words. You can, and you might be able to help someone in that moment.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And you're teaching, you're guiding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you speak the language, it's funny because you're channeling, it's coming through you. When you speak the language, I mean, I feel it and I see it in people. It brings you in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when you say go into your heart center, or whenever you're speaking about this stuff, and like I said, I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I know you feel it,
Mm-hmm.
and I see it in other people like you do. It brings them in. You see them just come right on in,
Yes.
and they're listening to you, but they're in. You
Mm-hmm.
see their souls.
And it's, yes, because I was just going to say, it's almost like you're looking right through them. You're eye to eye, but you're kind of looking right into them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like when you are trying to teach somebody something where they're outside, kind of like up in their head trying to remember it.
No.
Like you see them go up to their head and like, oh, I have to remember this or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like when people come in to have a session with me, lots of times they bring a notepad and a piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and they start to write something on, like very a couple minutes later they put it down because you can't keep up with it when I'm channeling is just coming through me.
Right.
And I tell them, don't worry, because first of all, you already have this inside of you. We come down with it, the knowledge, and then we lose it because we name things and we start judging things, and that's what we do because we're human. Um, but you already know this, and what is ready to come up, and what you were ready to to awaken to will naturally happen today, and that's what's supposed to be looked at today. Mm-hmm. And that is layers of the onion. It doesn't just go tink. Now it's over and done with one session. It's a lifelong practice. It's a practice. It's a way of living and a way of being. But there's an ease in it, and there's a grace in it, and there's a it's just like what's going on right now in the outside world. I've always said thoughts and words have power. So if you think about when you're thinking, it's like kind of like you're streaming, energy out there into the universe. So you have to be careful of what thoughts that you're forming and what words you're using. I mean, we all know people in our life that are very quick tempered and maybe have sharp tongues, and they all, without thinking, they say something cruel to us, and it really hurts. And they don't have the consciousness to know that they do it. Even if you tell them, they'll keep doing it because they're not conscious enough. And it doesn't feel good. And you can carry that around with you, and think you're a terrible person. People have power to do that if you give them the power.
It can last years and years and years.
Yes, it can. And you can take that on, and I mean, so it's very important to pay attention to how you feel around somebody. So what's going on now is I can't I choose to not look at Facebook. I choose to not turn on the news, and not because I want to be ignorant to what's going on. It's because there's so much judgment right now.
And there's so much hatred.
Yes. Yeah. And
we're not judging it. We're not judging it.
We're observing it.
Right.
And what happens is people have lost themselves. There's a lot of anger, and even if they've so-called gotten their way or what they want, they're still not happy.
No, they're not.
They're not, and they've just they're out. They're so out,
and that's
and
what I was going to say. They're just out.
Yes.
They're out, and it's this group consciousness right now. It's just the group consciousness, and maybe you can explain what that means. But the group consciousness energy is very. That's what you're explaining. Honestly,
it's just a collective energy of human beings and what we struggle with, and so right now there's that energy of I'm right and you're wrong.
And people have to be right. It really, that's what I see.
And why do you think people have to be right?
Because they need to be in control.
And they want to feel safe. It makes them feel safe.
Right? And it makes them feel very uncomfortable not to be in control.
And when you think about it,
and it's fear.
Yeah, it is fear of the unknown, and everything in the world's unknown. But now when I think of, there was many years in my life I wanted to feel in control. Like when my mother first died, I was scared to death because my mother held everything together, and she did. Everything I thought that was going to happen happened. My father lost his business. 6 years of terrible clinical depression with my dad. It was my mother said to me, Petra, you're gonna live a life of hell. And I did. I mean, I loved my dad, but my dad just fell apart.
And it was a lot.
Oh, it ripped my heart out for him, but he was killing me. It was awful.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's scary. Life can be scary. But when you also want to have control, you are just shutting your whole life down because, the gifts are, first of all, life happens in the moment. It's in the moment. The past is the past, the future is the future. So really, when you're in the moment, there's not much you can really talk about. Really, there's nothing to talk about unless you're speaking this language, in my opinion.
Right.
So when you're in control, you're making a very tight, small world for yourself. You're closing yourself in. Like my husband says, you're putting yourself in a box. And you don't leave much room for growth for yourself. You don't leave much room for somebody else to come toward you.
I was just going to say that you don't leave much room for other people.
No, you don't.
To be in your space.
No, you don't. And you're really not, you don't have any faith.
No.
You're not leaning on God.
Mm-mm.
But that's okay. Because you're trying so hard. You want to be in control. It's a fight or flight response. Right. You're just trying to survive. And
sometimes you may be trying to play God.
Yeah.
With
right.
it.
So, right now, somebody wants to be right. Because then it makes them feel like they are maybe, like I said, safe or valuable or better than somebody else. And words are words. That's all they are. They're words. Actions speak, right? Words are cheap. So right now, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not judging it. I'm observing it. Right now, there's a lot of I'm speaking and I'm telling you what's right. And at the same time, the same person, their actions are not aligned with their words.
Yes.
And they're so far out, they don't even see it. I can see it, you can see it, other people can see it.
But they don't even realize.
And you can't tell somebody when they're in that state.
No.
You cannot say to them, this is what I'm saying, because 9 times out of 10, they are not going to want to look at it. And they're not broken. They don't need to be fixed. However, do you want to stay in that vibration? It's toxic.
And that's you have a choice now.
Yes.
You have a choice.
It's toxic.
Yes. But before before I started doing this, I would think in my head, oh, I can't leave this person because they're my friend. I can't leave this person because they're my relative. I can't, I can't.
You felt guilty.
Right. I can't.
So you put the guilt on yourself. So see how guilt is?
Right. So it comes full circle. It really does. But until you do this, it's like, no, you know what? I choose to respect myself. And I choose to take myself out of their space. And I don't need to explain it.
It's true. Absolutely. And you know what? I'm not standing on a mountaintop, you and I, and preaching to people. We're not. We're trying to share what has brought us peace and joy and, good health and a genuine relationship with ourselves and God, right? It's a wonderful way to live.
It is.
And you do make choices that make you appear to be different. And maybe we are different. I came to the realization that I'm different. But I've always felt different.
Right, me too.
Different than my family. Different than my peers. Not better.
No.
Different. And that's a common thing when I work with people. They always say they felt different. And like I said, sometimes even made themselves feel less than. And then that person became the black sheep in the family. And that person became the addict. Hurting, right?
Right.
Playing small. And if you don't have you, even if you're saying yes to that other person and they made you feel guilty or you made yourself feel guilty, okay, and said, no, I can't be that person's my friend. Now you don't have you.
Right.
Yet you, because you do feel different, you didn't go out and leave yourself. You put yourself in that chair that I talk about, and you say, okay, I do know who I am. I know there's God in me, so I'm going to put you in the chair, and I'm going to go over here and do this human being stuff and forge ahead and work really hard and put myself in a spot where I don't want to be. It doesn't feel good, but I'm going to do it. And we did it time and time and time and time again. Right? And we created a lot of work for ourselves, and we weren't happy.
No, not at all.
And we did that. It was a choice, and it was okay. But then it was a horrible struggle because we weren't living our truth. It's not where we belonged. And I'm not saying that a person that is very angry right now doesn't belong there, because we're learning from them. They're our greatest teachers, right?
Right.
I'm choosing that's not what I want to be.
Right.
It's not the experience I'm going to have. It's more about the experience, not about what I want to be. Because everybody's God. Everybody has good God in them. Everybody's nothing but pure love and light. And then it's the choices you make, and it's the experiences that you create, and your thoughts turn into actions, right? But I want to feel good. That's why I say it. You have to be willing to feel. I want to feel good. I love the way it feels to drop into my heart center and be my centered self. My centered self doesn't beat up on me. No. It doesn't say, oh, you know what? You need to lose weight. My centered self will say, I want you to be healthy because I love you. And there's such a openness to that. And I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of that openness. I can just see myself floating on water and looking up at the sun, and it's coming down on me, and it feels so warm and so comforting. And I can just float and relax. Because this may sound corny, but I'm looking straight up at God because I respect myself. So it's God, me, and then everybody else. I'm not attached to what people do.
And once you really feel that and really go down into yourself and feel that, then you realize that it's such a nice place to be.
So, I really feel that right now, I think when we first started doing the podcast, I said, it feels like it's really the right time to do this because there's a lot of struggle going on. And the world's not the same. And I'm not saying we're supposed to go back to the way it was. I mean, I think the world's always been changing. I think, forever, right? But we create how we want to feel in any moment. And I don't want to feel like I need to be right.
No.
I don't want to feel like I want to feel wrong. There is no right or wrong.
No.
And my purpose, I know you feel the same way, is to just loving and kind and respect myself and allow my light to shine and just be me. Just be. I'm not going to go and try to reform people. For what? I don't have the right to do that.
No.
But I'm not going to fight and argue. There's no reason for it.
And it really is just peace. I mean, if I had to say one word, just peace. Peaceful. And the choices I know that I make, just love and peace. Those, I remember you asked in a class, for the new year, and I said, love and peace. That's what I want for myself for the new year. Love and peace. And this is peaceful. And there is love,
when you think about being a little child, kids are just in the moment. I know I probably talk about this every podcast, but kids are just in the moment. And they're just looking at the bird, letting the bird be the bird. They're looking at the otter, letting the otter be the otter. And, they just are learning about life. Learning, with all of their senses. And they're just in it. And they're just being. And I have a really good memory, so I can remember way back, 10 months old. And I still am that. That's who I am. And I've had many experiences in life, and I know I have a shadow side, and I've always been very aware of that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I'm able to tap in as well as I am and channel, because that is part of us, and it's to be embraced too and respected. But I can separate it now and really realize that the times in my life when I look back and say, well, if I could do that differently, I wouldn't have done that, or I wouldn't have said that. That was kind of harsh, or that was mean, or we can all look back, right, and have regrets, or whatever. I don't have regrets, but I can plainly see now it wasn't me.
Right.
Like, it really wasn't me. It was me being reactive to something. It was me, like some people say I was in a bad mood, but it wasn't you. You weren't grounded and in, and you allowed this frustrated energy or impatient energy, whatever, to come through you. And when you realize that, it's kind of like really, it's like this pressure comes off of you, and you're not like taking that responsibility, not taking responsibility. No. It's not that you let yourself off the hook, but you really, it just all fits together.
It does.
It's like an aha moment, right?
I was just going to say that it is an aha moment, because it's now you know that feeling. When you realize that feeling of just being you, it's like, and then now you take it a step further, and when something happens and you do get reactive, it's like, okay, at least myself, and I know you do this too, you step back and you just say, wait, is this me? Just like that. And you go back into that human self, and you say, this is not me. And then you know how to ground yourself again and go back and fall into your own self. So it until you have that feeling, it's like,
wow. Do you remember? See, I remember when I was little, and I would be playing by myself, and I would notice differences in things. Like, this is a smooth pebble. This is a one with edges. I was exploring and feeling things, and I was very happy to be by myself. And I never felt like I was by myself.
No, right.
Because I always felt my higher self. I always felt my centered self. I always felt my mother within. I was in my internal home. I always knew God was there. And when an adult would come around me, or even a child, but mostly an adult, I'd feel myself shift. And I would feel this energy of like, almost like intrusion, like energy, like they were a little bit like coming in my space a little bit, like not protective energy, but I would feel an actual shift. And what I think I was feeling, because I think a lot of times we think it's us, we're feeling something we're experiencing, but it was almost like a doubt energy. And I was picking up on the adults that, that's what happens as you grow and you become, as you get older, you start really doubting your intuition. You start doubting that childlike mentality, right?
But
you
I was going to say, you were probably picking up on their energy.
Right. So you think you have to grow up.
Yeah.
And, part of growing up is, you have to have your own mind, and you have to have, know what's right and wrong, and you have to, and that's where the comparison starts. And then you go to school and you learn these words of what everything is. And, you're just not in the moment and just being anymore. But that's the experience of living here, is to have those experiences. But if we can always remember we're not the experience. That sounds kind of like all over the place, but it's very easy and simple to me.
It is.
You know how they say children, no matter how bad a parent is, no matter how abusive of a relationship a child is in, how the children are wired to always want their parents, no matter how bad the parents are. Now, why do you think that is? It's because they see their parent, they see the light part of them. They're a little child. They're a child, yes, and they can see. I see my real mommy. I see my real daddy. Yes, I'm living in this awful fear. Yes, I'm I'm seeing how, 1 minute she's like this and now, wow, she's rageful,
Mm-hmm.
or now he's drunk or whatever. But they always want their mother, no matter who's taking care of them.
That's true.
Children always want their mother or want their father.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they see the goodness in them.
Mm-hmm.
We have so much to learn from being a child. It is about going back to being a child. This is what this work is about. And it's funny because as I work with people, they say, I've always felt like a big kid. And I'm like, me too.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, and I even feel more like a big kid now. And I'm like, me too.
Mm-hmm.
And enjoy it.
Right.
Because the world tells us who we need to be or whatever. And we don't have to be anything.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be anything. Except just be and feel and experience. And really, it sounds kind of easy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, really.
I mean, it is once you get there. I should say. Does that make sense? I don't want to make it hard.
Yeah.
Like that, it doesn't have to be the the path getting there doesn't have to be hard. But once you get there, it's like that's an aha moment too, because it's like, wow, I this is easy.
Mm-hmm. It is easy. It's simple.
It is.
I know.
That's I like that word better. It's a simpler way to be.
Mm-hmm. But and people would think it'd be, well, that might be boring for me, right? Because when you really think about it, if you're really in the moment, you're just being quiet. You're hearing. You're hearing. However, we know, what am I listening to? Am I listening to a thought outside of myself?
Right.
That's not me. That's a story. That's something somebody's told me. When you do this work too, like we've talked about boundaries, right? Having boundaries and boundaries are healthy because they teach us, they show people how we want to be treated. We're saying this is how I want to be treated. So that's actually a gift. When you set a boundary with somebody, you're giving yourself and them a gift. But when you do this work, we also have to set boundaries with ourselves and say, you know what, Petra, no matter what, if you're going to do this work and you're going to respect yourself, and if that person is going to make you feel guilty and you've been kind and you have validated them and you can see how they feel and you've assured them that you're not leaving them and because you really aren't, but you're going to continue to do this path because it's bringing you peace and joy. If that person's still tugging at you, you're going to make a boundary with yourself to say, no, I am willing to have that all thrown on me and to not pick it up. That person just threw a big hot stone in front of me. And as long as I don't pick that sucker up, I won't be burned.
Right.
And I'm going to have that boundary with myself. And I know it's going to sting, and I know it's going to be hard to walk away from that stone because there's a part of me that wants to pick that stone up because I've done it over and over again. I've picked that uncomfortableness up, and I'm not doing it. I'm not even going to touch it because I know it's hot. When you make yellow and red together, you're going to get, and you mix that orange all day long. You've done it over and over again. So that's a boundary I'm having with myself. And that is like your mother within saying, this is what you're going to do. So that's respecting yourself. And it's also loving them because you are not playing a game with that energy. Because this is a game that you play with this other person. So I'm respecting myself. It's like, don't poke the bear.
Right.
So if that person, you've had this genuine exchange with them, and if they want to if they don't want to listen and they want to keep pulling you into the story, like you said, pulling you into the story, I'm not good in the story. I get defensive, and all that does is give my power away, and all it does is feed that energy. It doesn't even, that their light selves doesn't want to do it either. The light part of them is feeding the energy. So I'm not going to poke the bear. I'm just going to let the bear sleep. And it doesn't make me that I'm taking a higher road. It's just I'm walking the path where I want to feel good.
And it's respecting yourself too. And it's once you learn how to, I think it's easier. It gets easier, but once you feel these things, you realize, oh, no, I felt this before, and that's where the boundary has an opportunity. You have a choice to put that boundary in there because of those feelings. They're like, oh no.
when we were little kids, and I know I did this with my children, and I know you did too, and our parents did with us, we were taught we needed to share. Mm-hmm. If you're a good person, you have to share. If you want to be if you want to be liked, right, you have to be a good little girl, right?
Right.
And I had this thought that what would happen because we're taught that, and look at the world. Okay, not that I'm judging it, but look at the heaviness right now in the darkness. Mm-hmm. So what if we were taught you don't have to share anything? It's yours. You don't have to be nice to anyone. I know this sounds crazy. You don't have to. You can say no. You can. I'm not sharing anything of mine. Okay. What would happen? We wouldn't be, looking for, like, when somebody's being nice to us, we're putting into ourselves that that's what's needed. Somebody else needs to be nice to us to make us feel a certain way, right? We're putting this pressure on the other person. We're putting this power there. So if we were really taught to make ourselves happy,
I feel like we would be more dependent upon ourselves.
Exactly. So if we were taught, you keep yourself happy. Yes. You keep yourself safe. You keep yourself content. You stay with yourself and listen to yourself. You focus on you. Right?
Right.
I think the
would
world
have come easier.
I think it would be a nicer place, and I think people would genuinely want to share when they wanted to share.
Right.
Not
if it was in their flow to share, yes.
Because we would be meeting our own needs. Mm-hmm. We'd be meeting our own needs. Mm-hmm. And then we would be developing ourselves to our full potential. And we would be so full and so whole. Okay? Mm-hmm. So full and so whole. We'd have lots of extra to share with other people. Right. We wouldn't be coming from, I don't really want to share, but I know I have to. But my parents tell me I have to. Right? Mm-hmm. I've always been pretty possessive of things. I really haven't. It's been a contradiction of what I thought was being a good person. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really share that well. I got to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I really don't. And I think it's because of this concept right here. Yeah. Because we told children, no, you have to do that.
I know. It's true.
And I did it.
And then you have all these expectations. You take on all these expectations.
Your false selves, right? False selves. It's just, I've always been curious to try to look at things in different ways.
Yeah. Like outside of the box.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I don't think I don't think I've ever been the kind of person to be out yelling at people and pointing the finger and saying, this is right and this is wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I had my grandchildren this weekend and talk about being little kids. And we're in the car, and my granddaughter says to me in the backseat, she says, Mammy. She calls me Mammy. And I said, yes. She says, I like your face. I like your face.
That's so cute.
It's so funny. They're just so funny. Just so funny.
But that's the innocence too, and it's like they just come out with it. And that's that was with so much love.
It was. My grandson he was playing, get the doctor kit out, and he's looking into my husband's ear, and he says, Poppy, there's a mouse in your ear, and it's in a cage. That's why you had a headache. You know what I mean? And it's just, but we were playing. That's what I mean. I was like hanging out with them, and like a kid, and I was playing, and I really enjoy and love. I love hanging out with them.
It's fun.
I've always loved hanging out with children. I really have. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to be a teacher. I got to be honest with you, or a school bus driver. That's a lot. But I love hanging out with kids. They're so innocent. They really are. I wish we could all just be more tuned in with that.
More childlike.
So I am, I know what's going on in the world, but I'm not focusing on it. I am not shutting myself off to it, but I am not putting my energy there because it's only going to empower it, because I'm not willing to go out and force my opinions on somebody else or say what I believe is right or wrong. And my main focus right now is to keep myself comfortable and keep myself safe and keep myself like listen to myself, you know, and be in the moment and be in and kind of observe what's happening in this external world, you know, because it is the balance of being in our internal world and our external world. And there's not a lot of that going on right now. But I do know that there are more people coming forward that are tired of living this way. They're tired of living in this demanding world and the world telling us how we're supposed to be or how we're supposed to feel, or like the whole guilt thing. And you really sometimes in life you have to reach the point of being tired.
Yeah.
Or hitting rock bottom.
And I like how you put it. You know, I've heard you say it gets to the point where you're tired of being tired. You know? And it's true.
And sometimes, you know, it's like there's points in my life where I said it can't be any worse than this.
Right.
It just can't be any worse than this. And sometimes when people come to me for a private session, like I said, they're in deep pain.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? I'll try it because I can't get any worse than this.
Yeah. It's like trauma.
It is
deep trauma.
Yeah, there's PTSD. There's childhood traumas, and it's that energy lives within us. And then it just you know, if we bury it, it's still there, and it's just this constant hum.
And we think it's us.
Yeah,
we really think it's us.
You do, and then what happens is if you've buried it, like anything that you were really putting out into the universe, you're going to draw to you. So now you know, you have that within you, and you are 100-watt light bulb. Some more of that energy is going to come to you,
Right.
And then that gets piled on more too. Then you think you're that, which is an even heavier energy quality, right?
Right.
So it's remembering that you're really just your centered self. I mean, once you really feel that centered self and a person really has an experience of it, I mean, they like you've been in a class where I've said that, and then all of a sudden everybody at once feels it, and everybody just kind of gets really quiet.
And that's awesome because it's like everybody kind of, you know, it happened to be a virtual class, and you can see yourself and you can see everybody else, and everybody's just nobody has anything to say.
And their eyes are really big.
Yeah, and it feels like so awesome.
It's empowering.
Yes.
And it's just a feeling of being present.
Yes, and actually, we were all in that space together.
And detachment. And pure love.
And at that time, nobody thought they had to say a word. You know, sometimes when it's quiet and people are uncomfortable, it's like, oh, what can I say to him? What can I bring up?
Well, that's because they're in their human self when they're feeling that way.
But in this moment, in that class, it was like just peaceful, just being.
That was all of us. That was that flow of that centered self, that God love, just going back and forth. And in that kind of a flow, you can actually, you have a connection. You don't need words to connect. And you just feel it. You know, when I used to walk to school with my mother, and you know, I used to say my mother was my God. And when I used to walk to school with my mother, we'd hold hands, and I realize now we really very seldom use words to speak. Yeah. We just had this connection where we spoke to each other all the time without words. And she was my God because my mom really constantly channeled. She just allowed God to come through her. And she had a very painful childhood. Like I said, her mom didn't want her, and no matter how bad your parents are, that child is wired to want their parents. And I didn't have that experience, so I don't know what that feels like. But I did feel what she felt, so I guess I do know what that feels like. I used to feel her pain. But you know, lots of times words get in the way. And you know, they're just part of the English vocabulary. It's a way to communicate. But it's really and honestly that, like you said, it's that feeling. It's you don't have to say anything. and there's a wholeness to it. You're full, and there's no comparison. There's just it's unified.
Mm-hmm. And when you have that with somebody, you can really feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no third person.
There isn't.
It's just you, the person, and God.
Mm-hmm.
So just pay attention this week to what do I want? What's really happening here right now? What am I witnessing? Why am I doing that? If it makes me feel this way, why am I continuing to do it? Do I want to try to do something different? And be willing to feel. Just be willing to feel or not feel. Just be more present and realize that if you're in and you're feeling, you'll know if something's coming from outside of yourself. And you can have a conversation. Your higher self is with you all the time. So for me, every time I go on Facebook, I feel horrible. But it's a pattern. Or every time I go on eBay and I spend money, I feel horrible. It's a high as I do it, but then I feel horrible. So I can stop, allow myself to feel what it is I'm going to feel like after I spend the money and while I'm spending the money, right? Because there's two different, so it's like the high and then it hits me and I feel awful about myself, the self-loathing, critical voice. But they're just all vibrations. But I know I don't want to feel that way. So it's awareness. Just have some awareness and decide if you want to start creating boundaries with yourself to live the kind of life that you might want to live. Because you can change and pick how you want to live, how you want to feel. It's your choice. You're entitled to it. It's your life.
And I think, it would be good to get maybe our listeners more involved with the comments. So maybe, tell us if you're comfortable, tell us what you want in your life. Tell us what you want. Tell us what, you're feeling with this stuff that's going on in the world. Or tell us some things that you would like us to touch upon, in the comments, and, subscribe and let us know, because I know we would love to hear from others, and we would love to kind of get a conversation going and, touch upon those things that you're curious about out there.
Yes, definitely. Because there's no such thing as a student. The student becomes a teacher and the teacher becomes a student. And that's what we're here for, is to hold a space so we can all grow, right? So thank you for joining us, and I hope that you enjoy your week, and thank you for listening to the podcast.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.